The following presentation is controversial and may be offensive to some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Radio from the heart of America now.
America is back, standing tall.
Ronald Reagan was the one who said that we are a shining city on a hill. We slid down the side of that hill.
I would like to take all the credit for this.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
I've handled thousands of lawsuits in my 34-year practice here in Albuquerque, and one of my favorite cases and favorite clients was Stella Liebeck, a 79-year-old woman who had just moved here from Tucson to be near her family, and she and her grandson purchased a cup of coffee at a McDonald's here in Albuquerque one morning. Hours, and as we were told afterwards, they got hung up on punitive damages. How much were they going to award for punitive damages? And ultimately the verdict was $2.7 million for punitive damages, which constituted roughly 2 days of hot coffee sales.
This is unbelievable. Majority Leader Eric Cantor said this week, after the whole government shutdown ended, he says, we know that this fight has been about Obamacare, and he says, and I promise you, brother, he says, this is a quote, we all agree Obamacare is an abomination.
Yeah,
Oh.
Eric Cantor uses the word abomination, which is a word directly connected to the Antichrist, right out of 2 Thessalonians, and Daniel. And Jesus said, beware of the abomination that causes desolation, and he actually used that. Hey, Mike, listen, I'm going to give you plenty of time to complete your thought, but let's go to the phone lines because we got somebody that's waiting to talk about all this. Chuck, thank you so much for listening to Freedom Friday. You have a question for me or Brandon or Mike, or you want to weigh in on something?
The caller, 2 callers ago, I think it was, before the break, was kind of broaching on the topic of Obama possibly taking over the country kind of thing.
Right.
And I just wanted to, I guess, I'm disgusted with all of them. I really am.
Yeah, we are too.
Yep.
I want to know if anybody knows where did we lose our checks and balances? Where is it that the dictatorial powers came in besides the last?
What a great segue! What a great segue to my next comment.
Yeah,
guys.
thank you, Chuck. Do you want to just do you have something else you want to ask, or you want to sit back and listen?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to, maybe the shout out part of all of this was that, I hear an awful lot of Obama bashing, and I'm right on in there too. But I think the accountability to the other 535 people up there is people just really neglect that, and they say things like, well, you can change it with your vote, but when does it ever change?
Yeah.
Name my little quote to anybody who tells me they like the government is, I say, name in the last, say, 15 years, just 5 good laws that you've seen passed out of thousands that they've passed. Name 5 that are good for the majority of the people, the working class people.
That's brilliant, Chuck, and thank you.
Chuck, just last week, right here on Freedom Friday, we both made the statement that if there's going to be a political change in this country, it's got to not only start with the presidency, but every single member of Congress, every single member of that Senate has got to go. I don't care if you think they're good, if they got an R beside their name or a D beside their name. The system is so corrupt, and there's too many ruling class families that have been there for too long, and the corruption runs so deep. Unless there is a total purge and cleansing of our government from top to bottom, then you're right. I agree with you. There is going to be no change.
And let me say, and then Mike, I want you to weigh in, but let me say, Chuck, this is why I have been saying for the last 5 years, in particular the last 2 years of the Cold Case Posse investigation, but I started talking about this 5 years ago. When we decided as a nation, now I'm not talking about the people out here, but I'm talking about Congress, Supreme Court, etc. When we decided as a nation, we didn't care if Obama was qualified or not. We investigated John McCain, the Senate did, and we investigated the snot out of him, but we didn't care, because he was the first black president. So we didn't care if he was from Kenya or not, or if he was from Hawaii or not, or if he wasn't even from here or not. We didn't care about that. And then Congress decided it didn't care and that they wouldn't investigate. And then the Supreme Court decided it didn't care and it wouldn't investigate. And the media decided it didn't care, and so they wouldn't investigate. That's where the accountability went down the toilet. And that's why I was screaming way back then, this is deeper, this is bigger than a birth certificate. Now the birth certificate is the dead body, if you will, of the crime. That's the dead body we're looking at. But the crime is this accountability of our entire nation. Congress deems that it's not accountable to us anymore. Supreme Court says they're not accountable to us anymore. The media says they're not accountable to us anymore. And Obama, the Obamanation, says he's not even accountable to the Constitution anymore. And here we are. Mike, what do you want to add to that?
I thought how great it would be if it was Chuck Missler calling the show, right?
Yeah. Well, Chuck Missler listens to us. I know that.
Well, listen, it's funny, you know. If I had any notes written for this for my participation here, I would swear that Chuck was reading them, because I can remember 25 years ago or so listening to Paul Harvey. Now, Paul Harvey was a true patriot. He loved the Lord. He loved his country. And I can remember he was detailing on his show, Paul Harvey News and Calling, he was detailing on his show how the rise of the litigious society, a society that was lawyering up. Now, this is when the whole phrase "lawyer up" became coined and popularized. When people were seeing opportunities to milk the system for a payday, they would call it, and take certain individuals to court. You know, you would have people get rear-ended by someone in a traffic jam and get out of their car and see that it was a Mercedes, and next thing you know, they're writhing on the ground in agony with their back, doing a soccer move.
Right.
A San Diego woman sued a well-known pizza company that tends to include children's games in their restaurant. So I'm not going to name names, but she sued this company, blaming them for her children's gambling addiction.
What?
Yes, $5 million she claims she's been damaged. So she says that these games in this popular pizza restaurant tend to make children experience the same highs and lows that are experienced by adults who gamble their paychecks and mortgage payments away. So she has sued this company for $5 million. In
order to lawyer up and get a payday, and Paul Harvey would recount events of, the lady who sued the McDonald's because the coffee was too hot, and settlements were rising and rising and rising. And Paul Harvey said, look, if this is allowed to continue, insurance rates would rise to the point where no one would be able to afford them. And Limbaugh, 20 years ago, Limbaugh was saying, at this rate, insurance companies, they do not lose money. Whenever they have to pay out, it gets tacked on and it's spread around to everybody's policies. And eventually, over time, Limbaugh would say, and Harvey would say, and all the great minds, all the great thinkers out there were saying 25 years ago, that eventually what would happen is the lawyers would take over and we would have a litigious society ruining itself. And today, That is what we see has happened to healthcare in the United States of America, is the litigious society has ruined itself. It has priced itself, sued itself out of existence, and the warnings were not heeded.
Well, Illinois woman was sued by her kids for a number of things that they claimed that they did to her over the years. This was for about $50,000. So the children claimed that, among other things, that she did not include gifts in the cards that she sent to them.
Oh my goodness.
She did not send them care packages in college until the 6th semester.
Did she pay for college?
Yeah, and refused to buy the daughter a homecoming dress.
Now the lawyers have taken over the country, and the cure here is worse than the disease, because the people who are charged with fixing this problem are responsible for it. The lawyers have done this to America, and you know what? This may not be popular, but listen, folks, it has got to come down to 2 words. 2 words is what will fix this problem entirely. It's called tort reform. You've got to knock down the litigious society that has risen up in America looking for a payday, and it has got to be enough is enough. But it has gotten to the point now where the lawyer...
The number 2 craziest lawsuit was filed by a lawyer. In this case, a lawyer was hired by a law firm in New York, and apparently he thought that he was the best lawyer in town, and so he sent an email out citing his superlative work and asking for a promotion in the 2nd week of his employment. Some of the other lawyers came and said he'd burned some bridges, and the next week he had been fired. So he's asking for $25 million in compensatory damages and $50 million in punitive damages because he says that burning bridges is not a reason to fire someone.
Lawyers have completely taken over the country. The president's a lawyer, his wife's a lawyer, all of the Congress and Senate, they're all lawyers. The lawyers there used to be a time when businessmen and farmers would come in and be a senator and even be a president for a while, then go back to their business, back to their farm. And, you know, if we could I could see a model where if we could merge the Canadian system, because Canada has tremendous tort reform. Frivolous lawsuits are against the law.
The craziest lawsuit of 2011 is, you hear about the couple that was kidnapped by a fugitive who was wanted for murder? Well, a couple apparently promised him under duress of a knife to hide him from the authorities. Well, when the man fell asleep, they ran away, and the cops came and shot the guy. Well, the guy sued the couple that he had kidnapped, claiming that he was shot because they did not fulfill their end of the contract. So he wants $75,000 in damages.
Now these are actual
lawsuits are against the law in this country. It's just they just don't go for it. If we can merge the mightiest healthcare system in the world prior to Obamacare, which was the American healthcare system, merge that system with the tort reform they have in Canada, I'm telling you, it would be the way it was intended to be.
The lawyers have taken it over. That's an awesome analysis.